Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Security Angle. I'm your host, Shelly Kramer, Managing Director and Principal Analyst here at theCUBE Research, and I am joined today by my friend and regular co-host, Joe Peterson. Joe is a fellow analyst and engineer, a member of the CUBE Collective community of independent analysts, and all-around brilliant person. Joe, welcome. It's always a pleasure to see you.
It's great to be here, and that's a tough intro to follow, man.
All right. Well, our conversation today is going to be one I think our audience is going to be excited about. And we are talking today about secure enterprise browsers and how we see this rising in popularity, and with good reason. They're really kind of the new endpoint. So browsers, let's step back a minute and think about this. Sometimes I think we take how we get onto and use the web for granted, but browsers. It's really kind of hard to think about it. It certainly makes me feel old that the first web browser was developed about 30 years ago. Tim Berners-Lee built it for Next computer in 1980. It was introduced at CERN in 1991. In 1994, along came Netscape Navigator, the first commercial web browser created by Netscape Communications, and it was completely free for all non-commercial users. By 1995, Netscape Navigator was not the only game in town, certainly not the only way to get online. And if you're old enough to remember, when AOL released its browser in 2005, it was a free standalone download, or it came as additional software bundled when installing AOL. AOL Explorer supported tabbed browsing, it used Microsoft's Trident browser engine, and I don't think during a significant period of my life back in those days, there was a day that went by without me bringing in the mail and seeing a disc with a call to action to download AOL. You know what? I don't think I ever did. Anyway, Netscape and AOL's biggest competition came from a small little computer software company like Microsoft. Microsoft licensed the old Mosaic code, built its own window to the web called Internet Explorer. That release sparked a war. Netscape and Microsoft worked feverishly to make new versions of their programs, each attempting to outdo the other with faster, better products. But that was really only the beginning, wasn't it, Joe?
It was only the beginning because Microsoft changed the game and began shipping Internet Explorer with every time they send out a Windows operating system. So within 4 years, Microsoft had captured 75% of the market. And by 1999, seems like forever ago, Microsoft had 99% of the market. So the company faced antitrust litigation over the move, and Netscape decided to open source its code base and created Mozilla. Realizing that having a browser monopoly wasn't in the best interest of users and the web, Firefox was created and released in 2002. So other competitors emerged during the late 90s and early 2000s, including Opera, Apple Safari, Google Chrome. Microsoft Edge replaced Explorer with the release of Windows 10 in 2015. Browsers are our collective gateway to the web, and today's key players in the arena are Firefox, Chrome, Edge, Safari, and Opera. But if you fast forward to 2024, most of the world is on this hybrid work schedule. If you think the most important piece of productivity software is your office product suites, you might be surprised to learn that it's the humble web browser. It's where people spend this enormous amount of work time connected to web apps like Google Docs, Gmail, Salesforce, all kinds of others.
Right.
And a great number of software makers that offer traditional apps that you install and run on the desktop, such as Trello, Asana, Slack, Microsoft 365 apps like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, all have web-based versions, which are sometimes more convenient to use depending upon where you're working.
Well, I don't know about you, but I do this all the time. Again, I know that our lives are very similar in some ways, but you have meetings all day long, and this meeting is on WebEx, and this meeting is on Teams, and this meeting is, and sometimes, and I do have all of those apps, but sometimes it's just easier to open it on the browser, so we use our browsers for everything. And, I'm very grateful for the ability to have, 50 browser tabs open on this version of Chrome, and then another 40.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, Joe, it's pretty easy to say that that humble browser is our collective window, not only to the world, but to our world of work, right? And so the question that you may be asking yourself, and really the topic of this conversation is, what does the enterprise browser have to do with security? And the answer is a lot. To take it even further, let's consider this. Um, are secure enterprise browsers the new endpoint? We believe that the answer to that is a resounding yes. In fact, Gartner predicted that by 2030, enterprise browsers will be the core platform for delivering workforce productivity and security software, by the way, on managed and unmanaged devices. And all of this is combining to create that seamless hybrid work experience that we all desire, right? So this rise in interest in the enterprise and the enterprise embrace of secure enterprise browsers makes perfect sense. I mean, almost every high value activity, exactly what you just said, almost every high value activity and interaction in the enterprise takes place on a browser, right? You've got authentication, access, communication, collaboration, administration, and even coding in many instances are all browser-based activities in the modern enterprise. But this gateway is also the gateway to a ton of sensitive corporate information. And it also represents a considerable risk factor. And that's what we wanted to talk about today. So I'll start off the conversation by sharing a stat from Spin AI. They did a study, and their assessment of some 300,000 browser extensions found that a whopping 51% had overly permissive access and could execute potentially malicious behaviors. Half, actually more than half, 51%. That's a lot of risk. So, that's really what we wanted to talk about today, and thought that diving into secure enterprise browsing makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it totally does. And so if you're wondering what secure enterprise browsing is because you haven't had a chance to play with it yet, and how it's used, or maybe your company hasn't incorporated it yet. And by the way, that's on the rise. There is a lot of risk associated with something that all of us use on a daily basis. So it really makes sense that secure enterprise browsing is having this moment, right? And it's a cloud-based environment that protects web-based activity from things like phishing, ransomware, data exfiltration. It's often used to isolate devices from the web, prevent leaks, enforce data policy controls, and provide web isolation and data transfer controls. So enterprise browsers offer flexibility, and they give IT teams the ability to monitor network traffic, block malicious files. They give employees the ability to work from any device, which is super important. And what's cool about a lot of them, now it's not all of them, but so a lot of them are built on standard browser code base.
Yeah.
So Google Chrome, for example, is built on Chromium. And that means, and so are these browsers, it means that they're fully compliant with all websites and extensions, right? So you're not going to have a user going somewhere a site that they can't get to because the browser is not approved. The cool thing is that the browsers work on any corporate devices, and there's each a little special secret sauce with each of them, how they work.
Right.
But that means that it'll work on the employee's desktop, their laptop, their mobile phone, or their tablet.
Yeah.
And the browser creates, like, you remember back in the day what a DMZ was, a demilitarized zone on a website, right? It's kind of like a DMZ. It creates this secure web space that's isolated from the machine by embedding advanced security mechanisms in the browser itself. And it protects against attacks targeting the browser that originate from the device, from the web, from use from a user, from other extensions. So this setup gives the IT team the ability to block certain applications. Like some companies block the word that begins with P, porn, I don't know. We've used that a couple times on this show. So
Yeah.
regulate internet traffic, block certain file downloads.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
So
and sometimes these days, they're blocking AI applications and things like that. One point that I wanted to emphasize, and as I was preparing for this conversation, I was looking at some research on, the different device diversity. So you talked about, I think when we think about browsers, generally speaking, we think about sitting in front of our laptop or our desktop, and that's our browser, right? But the reality of it is device diversity is incredibly broad here. And we're talking about, this comes from some research here, types of endpoint devices that are currently under management. So PCs running Microsoft Windows, general purpose IoT devices. Think of anything, all the devices that are connected to the internet, routers, all different kinds of things. Specialized IoT devices, PCs running Chrome, mobile phones running Android, mobile phones running iOS, tablets running iOS, tablets running Android, PCs running Mac operating systems, specialized OT devices, and then thin clients. So there's really there's a lot going on, to your point, about all these different kinds of devices that are on the network. And this is why enterprise browser security is such, I think we're seeing such a rise in interest in this. And it makes perfect sense, you know?
It does. And, if I can just share, I was sitting in the doctor's office, the doctor was late, and it's not just the things we think of, right? I
Right.
was bored. There was a machine there. I looked like I could get out to the internet on it. So I was out in the internet browsing away in the doctor's office, and the nurse comes in. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I was just cruising the internet while I was waiting." She said, "You weren't supposed to be able to get on there." I'm like, "I did." And that happens
I
all the
mean,
time. I
I
did.
am an engineer.
Well,
I am
no,
a
but
little bit of a tech nerd.
it happened. Well, there's that. But it happens. It can be all the things that we don't think about too, that aren't
Yeah.
really locked down and secure, that anybody can get into,
Yeah,
right? On
absolutely.
your premise.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about where we see the market heading for secure enterprise browsing. And so, with that in mind, we're seeing more and more applications heading to the cloud. Enterprise vendors, enterprise browser vendors have been adding browser security extensions to their portfolios as more enterprise customers are expressing interest in this. And I see the enterprise browser really as the desktop of the future, and providing protection for users wherever they are, whatever device they're using, reducing any kind of friction when they interact with SaaS and internal web apps. Um, I cited Gartner earlier in the show, but it's worth noting here that Gartner estimates that by 2027, so 3 years from now, the enterprise browser will be a central component of most enterprise super app consolidation strategies. And further productivity capabilities drive adoption. We're going to see this continue to grow. Today, extensions and managed browsers are really only about 10% penetrated within large enterprises. Gartner estimates that by 2030, enterprise browsers will be the core platform for delivering not only the productivity element, but the secure software for managed and unmanaged devices in this whole seamless hybrid work experience that we are, we live in, right? So, one case that comes immediately to mind as we're talking about this, and as we're talking about using secure internet browsers as a main platform for enterprises to manage work for their third-party contractors, external users, and all the BYOD policies. So in some cases, these browsers have components that allow them to replace VPNs or virtual desktop infrastructure for large enterprises. And both of these are kind of high ticket and expensive IT budget line items. So if these browsers have the ability to replace VPNs and VDI, we could be looking at some significant savings. So I think that's part of why we're seeing a rising interest in this as well. We have networking and internet infrastructure firms like Cisco and Citrix, and Cloudflare and Fortinet and Menlo Security and Zscaler. They all have incorporated remote browser isolation into their product portfolios. Checkpoint added a local browser isolation plugin, and companies like Harmony, Browse, Island, Manage Engine, and Garrison are also some of the key vendors that we've had our eyes on. So this is really, I think, a rapidly developing ecosystem.
Yeah, totally. Um, can you share a couple of the ones that you're keen in on?
Sure. Some of the movers and the shakers, Joe and I kind of talked a little bit about this as we were kind of identifying people that we're watching in this sector. And Palo Alto Networks recently acquired Talon Cybersecurity. They're a provider of local browser isolation tech. And that acquisition was about a $43 million, came with about a $43 million price tag. Talon provides comprehensive monitoring of all work-related web browsing without impacting the privacy of the workplace or third parties. Talon Work is an enterprise browser portfolio designed by Talon to provide deep visibility, granular controls, and native security for web apps and data. Talon Work claims to be the only SASE solution that secures both managed and unmanaged devices, and it protects any user, any device, any application. I just said that about something else, but this is tremendously important. We're going to explore Talon in greater detail here in a moment, so stay with us. Another company that I have been kind of paying a lot of attention to is a company by the name of Island. In April of 2024, Island, fast mover in the space, secured $175 million in growth funding, doubling its valuation to $3 billion. It's worth noting that Island is also a Cisco-backed startup. And Island's value prop is centered on the future of enterprise work being built in, not bolted on. That makes sense, right? So built in with everything that an enterprise needs: security, IT, network controls, data protections, app access, all of this embedded into the browsing experience. At RSA, a couple of months ago, I had the opportunity to interview Michael Fay. He's the CEO and founder of Island. And he shared an enterprise browser analogy that kind of resonated with me. And what he said was, using consumer tech on endpoints is about like putting a kitchen table in the boardroom. The amount of retrofitting needed for it to work the way you really want it to work in an enterprise setting is immense. And that's why an enterprise browser, he opines, is needed in the business world. And I think that's really pretty hard to argue. So rethinking the browser for the enterprise is not only about security, but it's about rethinking the whole experience, and with a goal of creating a seamless experience where security is not compromised, the end user can be more productive, and organizations can minimize costs. And that together is pretty attractive value prop.
It is. And I love that analogy because I'm sitting here thinking about retrofitting the kitchen table to fit in the boardroom.
Think about it, right?
Yeah, right.
All the things you'd have to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I thought it was great.
I don't
Michael
know.
Fay gets the credit.
I know. So let's talk about Google for a minute because it doesn't use Chrome. Everybody uses Chrome, right?
Yeah.
But Google's got an enterprise Chrome version, and
Yeah.
it's built for IT departments that want the ability to manage employees' browser settings, the extensions that they install, which is a big deal because everybody installs extensions, and the web apps they use. So more importantly, they also get a number of new security controls around things like DLP, malware protection, phishing prevention, zero trust access to SaaS apps. Now that's a big one, right?
Big one.
Think about, read a recent report that the growth SaaS apps are growing in everybody's budgets, right?
Yep.
Just, and Chrome Enterprise Premium is $6 a month, and it'll extend the security capabilities of the existing service based upon the insight that browsers are now endpoints. Yep. And most of the high value work that we've been talking about being done in the company, or being done right through browsers.
Right.
So we're seeing a couple others too that are interesting. There's some startups. And again, back to the secret sauce thing, everybody does it a little bit different. There's search security, there's layer X. On the consumer side, because we talked about, we're all consumers and we are,
Right.
There's cybersecurity firms such as Gen, and that was created by the merger of Norton LifeLock and Avast and SquareX, that are offering secure browsers to the home market. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will also add that our brilliant friend, Tyler Cohen-Wood's brainchild, Dark Kryptonite, is high on my list of secure browser solutions worth paying attention to. Dark Kryptonite is an AI-powered secure browser. It offers off-the-grid closed-loop network and AI-driven secure browsing. It provides an environment for private, anonymized, secure browsing and communications. And, one of the things that Tyler did when she was talking with us on a recent episode is that, she shared the analogy that the public internet is a little bit like a freeway that everybody has access to from any location, right? You think about that and think about your own neighborhood and all the streets and how everything leads to the highway. Well, nobody's preventing you from getting on it except, the city work crews. But really, think about it. The public internet is like a freeway that everyone has access to. And with that comes some risk. The dark kryptonite closed loop browser controls all access, and it's an alternative environment that can really help significantly reduce an organization's risk exposure. So I'm really bullish on dark kryptonite, and I know that Tyler is, such a mover and a shaker that I'm really excited to see what she and her team do with this, especially as sort of, interest is really turning a laser focus on the whole enterprise browsing experience.
Yeah, I mean, hats off to Tyler.
Yeah.
A female CISSP, a founder. Go Tyler. Go
Yeah.
Tyler. So let's talk about the functionality for a minute, because you alluded to that earlier, Shelly. I'm going to put my engineer's hat on, provide some detail about Island and Layer X. Shelly, you mentioned Island. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
I am. I mean, what they've done, yeah, great. And so we talked about it earlier. Their browser is built on Chromium, and that is the same open source project that powers Chrome, Edge, and other mainstream browsers. So to the end user, the browser looks and feels just like their regular browser, which is great.
Important.
It's super important because they're not going to use it if it's hard to use and clunky, right? So these guys thought about that. It's worth noting that the combined market share, they have a combined market share of more than 67%, I should say Chrome and Edge do.
Right.
And that's kind of a market dominant. So this makes Island's decision to build their solutions on Chromium a wise one because everybody's familiar with it.
Right.
But if we peel back the onion a little bit and look at that special sauce that we've been talking about and what's happening on the back end, the Island Enterprise Browser is doing forensic audit records of all your activities. And they've got granular controls, kind of little, I don't know, Orwellian, but it's happening over the depth of what's captured by the user, by the device type, by the application, by the location. Island even captures events and insights as granular as copy paste.
Island, I got to tell you something. Island would have its hands full with me on a daily basis based on the number of times I screen capture, copy paste. Oh my gosh. Yeah. But that's pretty cool.
You'd be getting calls into the CIO's office.
What are you doing with all those captures, Shelly?
But they take all that info and they put it in an aggregation platform. So if you just want to look at it holistically as an organization, like, man, we got a bunch of copy and pasters here. You can do that, or you can drill down to the flagrant copy and paster, like Shelly Kramer is. That's our most flagrant copy and paster, right? But all joking aside, where data protection and privacy concerns are needed, Island can anonymize the data to help you meet requirements of audits.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
I think your employees might also like to know that the data can be anonymized. I don't know. I might like that.
One who called that as a big copy and paster myself. I don't know. So Layer X is a browser agnostic security platform that's delivered as an extension. A little bit different, back to the special sauce. And, I think it's going to come down to preference. Like I had a CIO of a law firm say to me the other day, I really want an extension. I'm looking at this, but I really want an extension. Yeah. So again, potato things, right? But they do a lot of the same things. Layer X, you can configure policy activities, prevent risky user activities,
right?
Or compromised data loss. So once you have that policy in place and activate it, the Layer X Cloud Services pushes it to the extension that performs the actual enforcement on the browser. And the extension has three functionalities. It processes activity data and reports it to the cloud. It receives policies from the cloud service and enforces those, and then it analyzes risk together with the cloud service. So it integrates with identity management tools, which is also important. You can't buy something that's not going to integrate, and provides zero trust access to ensure minimal overhead for security teams. So that's, that's your whole VPN replacement thing there.
Right.
It's coming in and doing that. Shelly, you're going to tell us about Surf. So what have you got on that?
Yeah, Surf is another company that Joe and I have talked about on a number of occasions. And Surf offers a Chromium-based enterprise browser. It brings zero trust principles to the user by way of the browser. By configuring only a few policies, IT and security teams can significantly risk their attack surface, which is what everybody wants to do, right? And even better, Surf automatically enforces international privacy laws like GDPR, PIPDA, CCPA, I could go on with the acronyms. The founders, Modi Jacob and Zib Yankowitz, spent about 5 years together working as a CISO and a CTO at London-based ICAP Next Group. This company was acquired by the CME Group, which is the world's largest or the world's leading derivatives marketplace. And they were acquired for about $5.4 billion. They built Chromium-based applications to strengthen security and ease management of financial transactions. So Surf Security was established to allow global enterprises to close those security gaps without affecting productivity. And the way that they did that was they collapsed the security stack into one single powerful control point, the enterprise browser. So by design, Surf is a powerful security tool. It requires minimal maintenance, protects the work environment, regardless of physical location, device type. We're seeing a theme here, right? Any location, any device. That's really important. Gives you control over every aspect of the browser, add-ons, extensions, web filtering, transactional MFA, device posture checks, content rendering, all of the things. So the thing of it is that, after quick and easy provisioning, enterprises can enforce security controls like DLP, content disarming, reconstruction, phishing prevention, session kill switch, on-the-fly file encryption, so many things using Surf Security, which I think is really pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. And you gave a bit of an overview on Talon.
It did.
It's now part of Palo Alto as of late 2023. And they're also tackling the secure enterprise browser. So I'm going to give a couple more details about them.
Sure.
Talon Work is a Chromium-based enterprise browser portfolio and is designed to isolate web traffic locally on the endpoint. It provides a responsive native user response. So Talon Work, we talked about integration. It does integrate with popular identity providers to help streamline user onboarding and policy enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's great, right? So right out of the get-go, it's going to integrate with the tools that the user is going to start to use or work with.
Right.
It's designed to bring security to managed and unmanaged devices, regardless of the location, their device type, or the OS.
Again, the theme that we're seeing here, right?
Right. So it's not just PCs, it's
Yeah.
PCs and Macs, right? So because if you get into a marketing shop, they're going to have a lot of Macs,
Right.
whatever. Talon Work provides comprehensive monitoring of all work-related web browsing without impacting the privacy of the workforce or the third party. It also audits user activity inside SaaS and web apps to address security and compliance concerns. Talon Work offers comprehensive visibility of all browser activity through built-in reporting, dashboards, stuff we're seeing. IT and security teams can access deep insights and through full web audit trails, session recordings, and control monitoring depth.
Yeah, and that audit trail business is so important today for so many industries. I really think that's an important part of the value prop of a lot of these solutions on the marketplace. So as we wrap this episode, I hope we've given you something to think about on the secure enterprise browser front. As I mentioned earlier, when I had the opportunity to interview Island CEO Michael Fay during RSA, one of the things that he said, this is me quoting Michael Fay twice, one of the things that he said that really resonated with me was that he'd been in cybersecurity for his entire career. And the prospect of inventing yet another mousetrap just wasn't appealing to him. And so when his co-founder brought him the idea of this browser-based experience and upgrading the browser from consumer tech, taking that kitchen table out of the boardroom, but upgrading the browser from consumer tech to enterprise tech, he got it. And he realized that this could not only have considerable impact, but it was definitely a company worth being part of, and an undertaking worth being part of. So I thought that I thought that, like I said, it resonated with me. So security by design, a familiar experience, browsers we already use, we're already comfortable with, we don't have to learn something new. I think that's huge. Reduced complexity, the ability to help reduce costs across the enterprise. It's really a win all the way around. So I think whether you're looking at, what we talked about today, and this is not a comprehensive list, but, Island, Surf Security, Talon, LayerX, Google Chrome, or others, I'm guessing that truly secure enterprise browsing is without question in your future. And the enterprise browser is also without question the next endpoint, and one that we really need to be addressing. I think that the secure enterprise browser is perfectly positioned to play an outsized role in protecting enterprise endpoints and the organization of a whole. And this by way of the one tool that is familiar to all of us, whether you're in the office or remote. It's familiar. We rely on it on a daily basis. And you know what? We hope you'll start thinking about enterprise browser security and how this can maybe solve for you some pretty significant security concerns. So with that, we're going to wrap our show. Joe Peterson, as always, it's such a pleasure spending time with you and getting the benefit of your gray matter, which is always, always insightful. And to our listening and viewing audience, you are at theCUBE, and we are your source for enterprise and emerging tech news. And we'll see you back here on the Security Angle next time. This is Shelly Kramer, over and out.